Great and strength.
Okay, I'll call the Londonderry Planning Board meeting to order for March 8th, 2023. For everyone's information, this is International Women's Day, so you should be doing something for your significant other, us men, so.
It's a woman.
I left her
You
with
made
the
a big
kids.
assumption that your significant other is a
They
woman.
love the kids.
Yes, yes, I don't know how that works. I won't get into it. But I just want to point out for everyone who is here, this room has two exits. They're on the right-hand side of the audience, or at the front of the room, and the back of the room. If we have to evacuate for any reason, we ask you to proceed through the exit closest to you, go outside, move over the building, and don't come back into our fire officials have instructed us to do so. I'd like to ask everyone to please rise. We'll pledge allegiance to the American flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, tonight we are having a joint meeting with the Heritage Commission to discuss the lookbook. First part, we're going to be doing, our meeting shouldn't take terribly long, but we have administrative board work first where we get our business done. And old business, we have a continuance from January 4th on a lot line adjustment. It should be fairly straightforward. We'll have election of officers and a few other comments I have, and then we'll get to discussing the lookbook. And I don't know what'll be most convenient, 'cause maybe we can all be down there and move the chairs around so we can just have a discussion and watch the pictures that Jake has prepared. For administrative board work, we have minutes to approve of February 8th, 2023. If no one has a problem with them, I'll take a motion that we accept the minutes.
So move.
Motion by Al, second by Jake. Any discussion on the minutes of February 8th? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay.
Abstain.
One abstention, one abstention. And minutes carry, and the minutes of February 8th, 2023 are approved. Next, we have regional impact determinations, and Kelly,
None this evening, Mr. Chair.
okay, we aren't impacting our neighbors, so, at least so far. Discussions of town staff, anything, John?
I'm all set this evening, thank you.
Kelly?
Mr. Chair, we have an extension request.
Okay,
It is for 244 Nashua Road, a multifamily residential site plan that was originally approved March 23rd, 2021. And the applicant's requesting a 2-year extension to March 23rd, 2025.
do you give any reason for the extension request?
The reason for the request is that the applicant is seeking to change the ownership and go through the condominium conversion process, which is a planning board application process. And so they'd like to afford themselves enough time to complete that prior to proceeding with the development of the site.
Okay. So is the board have any questions, or is the board comfortable with 2 years, or?
I
you know,
have a
you could
question.
determine, Deb, I'll go to Jake.
Okay, thank you. So in 2 years, right, if something changes dramatically in our regulations, they're grandfathered in if we extend it, correct?
That's correct.
So, but if we don't extend it and things change, then the new application would apply to them, right?
Correct. So
Okay,
if the board wishes, you can shorten the extension request to a year, 6 months, whatever you choose.
Yeah, I think for a condo conversion, it's basically a subdivision. It's fairly, very straightforward. Shouldn't take that long.
I wouldn't think so. I mean, there's got to be a template for it somewhere.
Jake?
Would you guys prefer a 2-year extension, or would you want to see something shorter? Doesn't matter?
I don't necessarily have a preference.
I think you should be able to do it quicker, personally, and then it'll address Deb's concern.
Okay, so you want to do a year? Is that fair?
I'll go along with a year.
Yep.
That's fair.
I'll make a motion
I
then.
think it's very rare we've gone more than a year.
Yeah, it's a long time.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion then to extend it to March 23rd, 2024.
Second?
Okay, motion by Al and second by Jake for the request extension. Any discussion by the board? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. Abstentions? Jeff abstains. And chair votes affirmative, and motion carries. That has been extended for a year. Anything else, Kelly?
That's all I have this evening.
Oh, okay. And, yeah, we had a discussion earlier. I want to say thank you to Deb Paul for 3 years of service as a town councilor and also 3 years of service as an ex officio on the planning board. I don't think we had a consecutively same ex officio. I'd have to go back and look. But I just want to say thank you. You've been a good contributor. We haven't always agreed, but that's the way things go. That you come up with something better that way. You just
Hopefully.
discuss it.
Thank you, Art.
But certainly very appreciative of the effort and the tenure that you've put in. I know being a counselor is not an easy job, but I think you tends to age you, or, you know, it's an education in itself right away. You have to deal with so many people. But-
Well,
but-
thank you, Art. I appreciate it. It was very nice of you to say that. And it's been a pleasure to learn all this and to serve. It's been nice to see how things work on the other side.
Yeah, it is. Well, always said, if it's fun and educational, it's worthwhile doing, so it's, but thank you.
Oh, thank you.
I second that.
Why don't we just do it the easy way and give her a hand? Huh?
Very uncomfortable.
Okay, this Sunday is daylight savings time, so turn your clocks ahead an hour, so you won't be late for the rest of the year. And Tuesday is a very important day. March 14th is town meeting day, and you can, we ask everyone to please vote. It's your biggest responsibility as a citizen of the town and a citizen of this country, really. Regional housing assessment needs, which will be done by the Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission, is in draft form right now. It is on their website. There's several appendices that are not complete yet. But on the 21st of March, the commission will be accepting that and approving that plan. And I can send the link to the board of what the plan is. It is probably about 300 pages in length. Most of it are the appendices, but it lays everything right out, and actually Londonderry is in good shape for providing a good diversity of housing. Okay, will board have anything? If not, we'll go to other business. We have a public hearing on an application for a formal review of a lot line adjustment plan to adjust the lot line between 7 Chartwell Court, tax map 3, lot 45-61, zone agricultural residential 1, and 11 Greeley Road, tax map 3, lot 165-1, zone agricultural residential 1. Diana F. Walters Revocable Trust is the owner and applicant, and this has been continued from January 4th, 2023.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board.
We need to do the completeness for the plan.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, there are no outstanding checklist items. Staff recommends the application be accepted as complete.
Okay. Any questions from the board? If not, I'll take a motion for completeness.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to accept the application as complete per staff's recommendation memorandum dated March 8th, 2023.
Second?
Okay, motion by Al and second by Jake for the completeness of the plan. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Abstentions, chair votes affirmative, and the plan has been accepted as complete. And what this does is start the 65-day time frame in which this board has to render a decision, and also it starts the public hearing on it. So the presenter can come and identify yourself, please, for our records.
Well, good evening. My name is Mark Sargent, and I am a licensed land surveyor with the firm of Richard Bartlett and Associates. And I'm here tonight representing Mrs. Walters. I do have a plan. I kind of put together, it's a two-sheet thing. Do you want me to stick it on the easel so it's something you can look at?
Oh,
Actually, they can all see it on their screen.
yeah, I think.
Yeah, is
we-
it what's up on the screen
Yeah,
here?
Well, it's
Because
a
on the
two-sheeter, so I
screen,
put
yeah.
it together, so I don't know if that would
well,
help you, or
there's more detail on,
same amount of detail, it's just the two sheets are taped together versus you have to scroll between the
okay,
two.
we can work what we have
Okay.
on the, electronically here.
So what we have before the board this evening is two parcels. The first located at 7 Chartwell Court, that's map 3, lot 45-61, has an area of 3.06 acres with 150 feet of frontage on Chartwell Court. The parcel has a single-family home, which is Miss Walters' residence. It's serviced by an on-site well and an on-site septic system. The second parcel is at 11 Greeley Road. That's on map 3, lot 165-1. That area has an area of 9.32 acres with 52.9 feet of frontage on Greeley Road. The parcel also has a single-family home, which is serviced by an on-site well and on-site septic. Both parcels, well, the first parcel at 7 Chartwell was created in 1986 by a subdivision approved by this board, and 11 Greeley was an approved subdivision in 1975. So the lot line adjustment before the board this evening is to annex 2.25 acres of 11 Greeley to 7 Chartwell. That gives a new lot area to 7 Chartwell of 5.31 acres, leaves 11 Greeley with 7.07 acres. The frontage on both lots will remain the same. We did do some HIS mapping and some topo on a portion of the 11 Greeley site to prove out that it was a buildable lot. And what we have shown there, that has a lot capacity of 1.5. We have requested a couple waivers, that to section 4.14, which requires the measurement of topography and a HIS mapping on both parcels, being the remainder of Greeley and the total of 7 Chartwell. We did provide justification for that waiver. We've asked for a waiver to section 3.05, which is the utility clearance letters for non-municipal utilities. Both lots are serviced by electrical, cable TV, internet, and there's no changes that are proposed. In section 3.34, which is a site distance profile, we did provide the site distance profile. However, the site distance profile for 7 Chartwell, where the measurement is taken 3.75 feet or 3.75 feet above the roadway at a distance of 250 feet away, looking at a point that's a half a foot off the edge of the driveway. As you look across the middle of the cul-de-sac, it misses it by a half a foot. And our justification on that is, that driveway has been in existence since the late 80s. And
Okay, so it's an existing condition.
it's an existing condition, and there's no changes proposed. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay, what we will do is go to staff, get staff input, we'll go to the board, get the board input, then we'll go to the public, get public input, and we'll bring it back for the board to look at the waivers and also, the plan itself. John?
Go through the waiver request
Bless you.
first that
Thank you.
Mark went through. Applicant is requesting waiver from Exhibit D2 for 7 Chartwell Court, as it does not meet the requirement for sightline profile A, but does meet the requirement of sightline profile B. Staff does not support the granting of this waiver. Staff sees this as an opportunity to improve if improvements are warranted. Second waiver request was to section 4.17 of the subdivision regs, to not provide the benchmark data and topographic high-intensity soil survey for the entire parcels. Staff does support the granting of this waiver, as the parcel being reduced includes a portion mapped for topography and soils to prove a buildable parcel. Additionally, as a result of the lot line adjustment, both parcels will exceed 5 acres in area but do not necessitate New Hampshire DES subdivision approval, and no additional improvements are proposed at this time. Third waiver request that Mark mentioned was to section 3.05 of the subdivision regs to not provide utility clearance letters. Staff does support the granting of this waiver, as the parcels have existing residential structures and existing non-municipal utilities, and no new construction is proposed. Have just a few design review items. The applicant should include the individual subsurface system approval number for the existing 7 Chartwell Court lot on the plan per the regulations. The applicant should note the intent to provide boundary markers and/or monuments for all segments of both parcels per the Londonderry subdivision regulations and checklists. We're requesting that the applicant add the owner's signature per the regulations. And lastly, the applicant should provide a boundary plan for map 3 lot 165-1 that shows an area of closure of less than 1 in 10,000 for the regulations. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you, John. Anything to add, Kelly?
No, actually, John's covered it. It's pretty straightforward at this point.
Yep. Okay, I'll go through the board. I'll start with Ann.
So, John, basically, the elevation of the driveway, the way it goes up towards the road, is that the issue?
No, so when you're driving down Chartwell, and you're looking at the object that's 6
Right.
inches above the pavement, there's an obstruction looking through the cul-de-sac itself.
So where's the obstruction? In the cul-de-sac?
In the cul-de-sac
I'm
itself.
going to pull it up.
Do they own the
The town owns the cul-de-sac.
well, does
If you
that
look at
mean,
the picture.
does that mean the town has to remove it?
No, I would work with the applicant to see what exactly
Okay.
would need to be done.
So it's nothing to do with the driveway? Or anything?
No.
Okay, yeah, now I see what you mean, okay. Appreciate that. That's the only question I had. Thank you.
Okay, Deb,
I don't have anything, sorry.
Jeff,
I'm just gonna ask the question, could you explain to me what's the difference between Site A and Site B?
Site A is when you're driving down the road and you're looking at an object that's 6 inches above so the idea is the kid is running after the ball, you can stop within 250 feet. If you're going 35 miles per hour or less, you should be able to stop. The B profile is if you're sitting in your car and you're looking left and you're looking right, if your height of your eye is 3.5 feet, you're looking at an object that's 4 3/4 feet high, so that would be like the top of the car. So you're sitting there and you can say, okay, yeah, don't go, obviously. And that guy should be able to see you as well.
So from a, excuse me, so from a difference, obviously, staff doesn't support because of the safety aspects.
And again, it also gives us an opportunity to fix a problem.
Does the applicant have any concerns about Site A versus Site B?
And being concerned with the actual site distance or concerned with the construction that would be required in order
But
to
you,
approve it?
I mean, the applicant put in a waiver for Site A. Staff is recommending for this board to not approve that waiver,
Exactly.
and has suggested for, from a Site B, from what John was, explaining to me, I'm tending to agree that, from a safety aspect, it makes sense, and, it also has an opportunity for us to approve. Is the applicant open to that recommendation, or is the applicant needing that Site A approval?
We have requested it because we don't think we need to do that. What would require, if you look at the picture,
Yep.
this is looking at the end of Miss Walter's driveway. You see all the way down the road there. There's 3 residences, including herself, on that circle right there. So it's a low-traffic area, and Miss Walter's driveway is in considerable length. So what it would require, where it doesn't meet, is just past or just at the tip of the cul-de-sac on the far end, where the edge of pavement, you see how it kind of rises up just a little bit there. So essentially, what it would mean is ripping out all that pavement and redoing it. And, I think the cost alone would be prohibitive. And it really, I don't think it's going to do a whole lot. The amount of traffic that's actually on that road is minimal, and the amount of residences that it serves in that area is minimal. So most of the traffic, when somebody comes in there,
Yeah.
either someone's gonna go to Miss Walters coming in, or somebody's either gonna go, chances are there's a house, if you're looking at it right here, on the left, and there's a house on the right. And somebody's gonna come in, they're gonna turn right to go to the house that's on the left side of the picture. They're probably gonna turn left and not go around the circle, because the driveway is really close to that intersection. So,
Understood, you have current state, but future state, those houses get sold, kids come in, and then we're, have the scenario of the ball going down the road and having that safety aspect. But, yeah, thanks for kind of talking me through that. I appreciate
yeah.
it.
And again, the condition has existed since 1985, so.
Thank you.
Chances it probably wasn't a requirement at that time, when the driveway was put in, so.
All set, Jeff?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair.
No questions, Mr. Chair.
So, John, what exactly, since you're not supporting this waiver, what do you see as the remedy?
I
to
think what it
this.
is, I think what it is, Al, if you look at the picture, I think what ends up happening is that the cul-de-sac is higher, and then the grade of the road drops as you're going back up
Right.
towards Sparhawk, or whatever it is. So I think that's what it is. So Mark's right, you'd end up having to reconstruct that end of the cul-de-sac.
Oh, okay, I see. All right, thanks. That's all I have.
Ted?
I have no issues with the plan. I think it would be unnecessary for the town to put that cost on the one homeowner to do a lot line adjustment. I think that would be unnecessary.
Roger?
I've been through this one before. And I feel the same way. If it hasn't had an accident or hasn't had any indication, I don't think we should be putting it on one person either, so.
Okay, Jake?
How many feet of lot line are you getting rid of?
I'm sorry?
How many feet of lot line, the line that you're getting rid of, how long is that?
If you could scroll back to the plan, I haven't got it right in front of me. The lot line that exists now, see, it kind of goes around
Yeah.
the pond.
Kind of hooked there, yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know the exact length. It's kind of lengthy.
But so you'd be getting rid of from, what does that say? Who's that on the bottom? Butterfield or something?
Is getting rid of all this.
All that right there.
Thank you.
Yeah,
And this is gonna be the straight line.
just poof.
Yeah.
All the pond and everything goes to 7 Chartwell.
Yeah,
Okay, so that one middle hook would be gone.
exactly.
I think, I can understand that this doesn't meet a sightline distance, but personally, I don't see there being a big issue there. The house has been here since the 80s. The homeowner owns both of the houses. Trying to get back to the pictures you had, waiver request. I think putting these improvements on the homeowner in order to get their lot line request is a little much in my opinion. So I would be fine supporting their waiver as opposed to opposing it. I don't really see an issue with it here. It's a dead-end road. It's got a handful of houses on it. It's probably not gonna have any more houses on it. I think should be something that we're gonna wanna support their waiver request.
Okay, good. Thanks. Are there any abutters or anyone from the public have any questions, comments, and concerns in regards to this lot line adjustment? And technically, it's a subdivision, so. I do not see anyone. There's no public input, so we'll bring it back to the board. Lynn?
So just wanted to work off of Jake's comment. So in my mind, I support staff's recommendation to not grant the waiver because I just don't know enough of what is required to bring the road into compliance. If I knew more about what it was and how much it's going to cost, then that might sway me. But without that information in my hand, I support staff.
Okay, anything else from the board? Ann?
This issue's been there since the road was built,
Yes.
and we have 3 houses already on the street.
Yes, it's it's a complete, I mean, it's a neighborhood. It's not gonna be changing in the future.
Right.
Unless someone comes in and buys up all the properties and builds whatever 50 years from now, but.
So basically, any of those three houses on the street, if the owners came before us for some change, they would be stuck with the issue?
No, and, because each driveway is looked at separately. Each driveway is looked at separately.
Okay.
This is the site distance for this particular parcel.
Okay, so it's not, let me get this straight. I'm so used to talking about this in terms of from the driveway looking out at the street.
Yep.
What am I missing here?
So now you're in the car looking back at the driveway.
Okay. And how many feet is the distance between the far side of that circle to the driveway?
So sometime when you come upstairs, I'll give you a lesson, but it's the travel way of the vehicle itself.
Right.
Not a straight shot. You're looking straight across, but it's the travel distance of the vehicle
Okay.
is what you're looking at.
So the car comes up, or the, whatever vehicle, comes up at the top of the roadway where it intersection with the circle, and it goes either way.
Yep.
And we're worried that kids would be in the circle,
No. Kids are in the driveway chasing after the ball.
in the driveway.
Correct.
I'm missing the disconnect between the driveway and the roadway and that far intersection between the road and the circle here, and how that would affect somebody in the driveway. I'm just missing that. Because I'm used to dealing with straight roads
Right.
that may not have the view. And here we're saying a clear view across the circle. That circle demands that the driver slow down itself. It's not like a straightaway.
Yep.
So I'm having a little trouble with this
Just,
as far as what
yeah.
needs to be done.
So just to clarify here, so everybody understands it, if we agree that we do not support this waiver and these folks want to move forward with their lot line adjustment, they're going to be looking at potentially regrading part of a roadway as well as a cul-de-sac to remove a few hundred feet of lot line between their own two properties. Now, I got a quote about a month ago to redo my driveway, and it was almost $10,000. I can only imagine what it's gonna be to work this and regrade something that's been there since 1988 and is not going to get developed anymore, is fully developed. The cost that's gonna be incurred and burdened on that homeowner just to remove a lot line between their own two properties. Just so we all understand that. If we don't support this, if we agree with staff and we say we can't support this waiver, that is what we're saying, that they are going to have to re-engineer this dead-end cul-de-sac with 4 or 5 houses on it, just so we all understand that.
Yeah, I think that's where it is, you know, is the cost of redoing it worth probably not a lot of improvement from what exists right now.
Correct. So in my
That's
opinion,
basically what it is, you know. Should we make them go through this expensive process or not? It's been there for nearly 40 years, so, and it has not been a problem.
will we be taking these waivers separate because they all aren't? Or are they all-
We can take them separate.
Could I make a motion to support
Actually,
the first
I
waiver?
had one more question for
Sure,
staff.
absolutely.
Sorry, Jake.
No.
John, Kelly, could you just explain one more time why staff is not recommending this waiver based on what was just described here? You know, the area is potentially not going to be, developed. You know, limited houses. You got a traffic circle that's, that does function as a detriment to traffic. I just want to kind of understand why staff is not this waiver.
Engineering standpoint, we always take the opportunity. If there's improvements to be done, then we take the opportunity. That's why we are staff, we look at the regulations, and we make our determination, and that's why they need to ask you people for a waiver.
Granting waivers is within our power, it's not
Correct.
staff's power. Staff has to
It-
follow.
it
Oh,
doesn't-
yes,
yeah.
of course, I get that.
Yeah.
What I'm asking is, why is staff not recommending this?
Because
I mean, you said regulations, can you pinpoint the regulations? Can you pinpoint this items? I mean, that's fine, that's great, that's good and all, but, you know, I think that we need to, I mean, I've seen other waivers that have been kind of with staff support. I really want to understand, and I think it's good for the community to understand why
Yeah.
why staff is not recommending this.
because we have regulations for site distance, and again, it's a safety issue, my opinion.
But basically, staff is doing their job, which is our expectation.
It doesn't meet our current requirements, so it would therefore have to be a waiver, which leaves it up to us. And then, again, it's right kind of where the cul-de-sac and the road meet. I think the cul-de-sac's like this and the road's like this, is basically what they're saying.
The only other thing I would add is staff wants to remain consistent in what we do and do not support. And consistently in the past, we have not supported waivers such as this.
Yeah, because this has happened, in the past. It'll happen in the future also. But the discretion with this board, the bulk of the existing situations, the board grants the waiver. That's the way it has been historically. So.
Yeah, and I think that the board needs to take those factors into consideration when they make the determination whether or not they grant the waiver or not.
Okay, any more questions? If not, I'll take the waivers individually, starting with first, second, and third.
Could I make a motion to support the first waiver?
Okay, motion by Jake. Do we have a second? Second.
Second by,
You're an alternate, Roger, so
oh, okay.
can't, so I need a regular member or a ex officio.
Jake, I apologize, just to be clear, you're making a motion.
I want to support the waiver, correct. Staff does not support the waiver, but I would like to support the waiver, which would allow them to move forward without having to re-engineer a road to get rid of a lot line.
Do I have a motion? Do I have a second?
Art, am I able to second? I forget if you made me
I-
do you make me a full member tonight? I don't know. Am I able to?
No, we have all full members tonight, so,
Okay, so I can't.
yeah, so you can't. Unless I step down, Al will chair, and I'll second the motion.
Perfect, and I'm gonna shut that door.
I was going to do that myself.
You're in charge, Al.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion at all?
Just before we make our vote, to reiterate, if we say we don't support this waiver, we're telling this homeowner that they need to re-engineer an entire street for a lot line adjustment, just so everybody understands that.
No, we're not saying that, Mr. Alternate Chair. What we're saying is, the applicant has not provided the data necessary for us to make a decision.
They
Because
have,
We're
they,
speculating on what the correction is, and we're speculating on what the cost would be. We don't know that. We don't know that.
We were just told by staff.
we were just told by staff it does not meet the,
No, we know that, but what
Yeah.
is the fix that is required? How
so,
much is the cost of that fix, the estimated cost of that fix?
okay,
That
so.
we don't know.
So you would like us to say no, have this applicant incur more engineering fees to tell us that we know they need to re-engineer and redesign the road to meet our current standard.
I would like to know more than what was presented tonight.
Okay, we can continue this until that information is there. I mean, I'm speaking out of turn, but.
Well, I certainly don't want to say no to him over this, so whatever would be the best way to do that, to get more information to show that what needs to be re-engineered, I certainly don't want to say no to them over this.
If I can make a comment, going back to some of the training that we've had in the past, where financial interests are involved, I kind of think that would be a good idea to find out what the cost would be to re-engineer that. I agree with you on that. That might make a big difference in what some of you think.
We don't know. Exactly.
Well, then I'd certainly rather continue it than say I don't support it and then approve this application. Because,
So if you want to withdraw your
I'll
motion and
withdraw-
Arthur
I'll withdraw
withdraws
my
your second, okay, then it's done, and we'll proceed on that.
Okay, so we will, what I will do is accept a motion to continue this plan until we have that information. And if staff could just put together some, costs, and also the applicant also, work with staff on what the cost is.
We'll make that motion. Do you
yeah.
have a particular date?
I'll second it. Can we talk to, do you think you'd be able to even get that information?
I'll have to talk to my client.
Yeah,
She's thrown a lot of money at this already.
correct.
Hire an engineer to design a road, figure out what it's gonna cost.
Our continued meeting, first one would be the 12th of April.
Okay, we'll make that motion to continue the 12th of April.
Okay.
I'll second that,
Motion
Mr.
by
Chair.
Al to continue the plan to the 12th of April, second by Lynn. Any discussion from the board? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. Abstentions, here it's affirmative, and the plan is continued until the 12th of April. Your only official notice is that the continuance is to the 12th of April, 7 PM, right here. Thank you. Okay, next we'll move on to other business. We have, Kelly is doing a update on our growth, so at least we'll be able to compare the growth of the town with its traditional rate of growth for '22, and also the comparison with the surrounding towns. And Councilor Butler has raised the issue of growth management. So Kelly is working on that. That's also what I put into my, the planning board annual report. There's info there for '21. And '21 was a good leap over from our traditional growth of, we're usually between 120, 130 dwelling units per year. We're at 200 for this, past year for '21. So that is being done. Also, we had a request, I think, for EV station at Woodmont, and probably we should, I know you got a long list, Kelly, but start looking at what we can put into our, site plan, regulations in regards to EV stations, at least to give some formality to it. And the city of Dover has a,
Yes, I do have those regs from Dover, and just to be clear, that application was withdrawn.
yes,
So.
yeah. Okay, and that's what election of officers.
Mr. Chair, I just have one question about the growth ordinance, and really quickly, and I just want to kind of see where we are from a population standpoint. Our master plan has a 2020 projection of 31,688 residents. Are we, in 2020, have we hit that, or have we exceeded it?
Or just shy of 27.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, those are figures from the Office of Planning and Economic Development.
Thank you. Okay, great.
Yeah, and it's not a formal census. I know our 2020 census, we are at, I think, 25,8 something or other, but we're almost to 27,000 now, as determined by the Office of Site Planning and Economic Development.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I think the question is, how much can our infrastructure, and looking at the police department, fire department, the ability to keep up with what the demand is. So the only reason you have growth management is because of, shortfall in infrastructure, and growth management in the state of New Hampshire is only a temporary ordinance. It's designed to expire at a certain period of time. The way ours did, I think it was back in 15, about that time period, that we were, growing slowly, but it was coming after the Great Recession, so everything was slowed down. So of course, with things, the economy heats up, so does the building and everything, and population growth. So election of officers, I hadn't heard from anyone who wants to run, and I'll take, nominations, or if the board is comfortable with the current slate of offices, that's been fine with,
Mr. Chair, could I make a motion to keep you as chair, Mr. Sypek as vice chair, myself as secretary, and Lynn, I believe, as vice secretary?
Correct. Assistant Secretary.
Assistant secretary, excuse me.
I'd like to second that, Mr. Chair.
okay, I have a motion to keep the current slate of offices and a second. Any discussion by the board? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Abstentions? Chair will vote affirmative, so I voted for myself when I ran for office, so. So our slate of offices will continue for the current year until next March, because we have to have the numbers in by the end of March for the Secretary of State, at least who's who for running the various boards and committees statewide. Next we have our joint meeting with the
Mr. Chair?
Heritage Commission. Pardon?
CIP Committee and Heritage.
Oh, thank you, Kelly. I always forget that. We need, it's Jake and Jeff that are on the CIP committee. And usually I look for volunteers, so if you two are comfortable with volunteering again, if not, just speak up and,
Yeah, I'd like to
I
remain.
would like to remain as well.
okay. And then I'm the ex officio with the Heritage Commission, and of course, a member there. If you're a member of the Heritage Commission, only one member of the planning board can be on the Heritage Commission by statute, so.
So I'd like to make a motion to keep myself and Jeff as the CIP and you as the Heritage Commission.
Second.
Okay, motion by Jake, second by Al. Any discussion?
Quick question.
Yes.
Is he able to nominate himself for that? Or does someone else need to nominate himself for that? I just want to make sure our
I don't think
process.
it matters, right?
It doesn't
Okay,
matter.
I just want to make sure what the
We're not
process was.
strict Robert's rules, it's kind of semi-Robert's rules,
Okay.
but I think whatever goes with the board. There's nothing in our rules and procedures that prohibit it, there's nothing in the rules and procedures that say advocate for it, so.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
Okay, I have a motion and I have a
You've done it for
second.
me.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Abstentions shows affirmative, and motion carries. Anything else? Well, we'll proceed with our joint meeting with the Heritage Commission, and the topic is the Londonderry Lookbook. Just basically, there are specific rules in the planning board rules of procedure, and I think there could be something similar in the Heritage Commission rules of procedure, where basically a joint meeting with another local land use board may be held at any time when called jointly by the chairman of both boards. And a joint public hearing must be a formal, this looks at it in terms of a formal public hearing. This is just a workshop, there's no public, public input or anything. Until we have the final product. The planning board chair shall chair all joint meetings and public hearings when the subject matter involves the planning board. The rules and procedures for joint meetings and hearings, the subject matter which involves the planning board shall be the same as those rules of procedure, except that the order of business shall be as follows: call to order by chairman, introduction to members of both boards by the chairman, and explanation of reason for the joint meeting by chairman. In case of the public hearing relative, there's no public hearing here, and then adjournment. So, I'll go through the planning board, they can introduce themselves, and then, Chris, you can, have the Heritage Commission do their intros. And I think ex officio Butler has left the room for the moment, so. So, I'll start with Ann.
And Champa.
Ann Champa,
Deb Paul.
Jeff Penta?
Lynn Wiles?
Lynn's Assistant Secretary. Art Rugg, I'm Chair.
Al Sypek.
Al's Vice Chair.
Take Holmes.
Roger Filio.
And Jake Butler, I'm the secretary.
And Chris.
Mr. Chair, my name is Chris Kenny. I'm the chairman of the Heritage Commission. Present obviously is yourself, the vice chair. We also have John Mann here, who is our secretary, Sue Jodry, as well as Kristen Endyke.
Okay, would it be easier for you guys, for all of us to be down there or something, and we could look at the slides up here?
I'm comfortable right here. I don't know if you guys want to come up or stay where you are. I think I'm good. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
There's a couple of microphones over there.
Just come to the front of the class.
Yeah, oh,
Yeah, I guess you're right. Microphones would be important.
Mr. Chair,
yes, Deb.
I just would like to say a little bit of history on this, only because I was on Heritage and I worked with Tom putting this original one
Yes.
together, and where we came up with the concept for putting it together, if you would allow me to say that.
Certainly. Tom Bianchi, who was on the Heritage Commission, Tom has passed away, unfortunately, had put together some of the original plans of it. I know Deb was involved, so you can, you got the floor, Deb.
Thank you. So when we were doing our master plan, we were getting educated on form-based zoning. And basically what we grabbed from it was form-based zoning is, you have a visual concept of what you want something to look like. Because like an artist who paints a chair, they're all painting the same chair, but you have different interpretations of what that chair is. So when someone would say industrial, what would come to mind to one may not be the same envision of another. And so to keep people on the same page and not get frustrated with going back and forth, we thought that by taking all of the terminology and assigning images that the group felt in alliance with the master plan aligned together, so that when a developer was coming in, before they even saw us, they could look at the lookbook and say, I'm putting in this industrial building, right? And then they could see examples of what was preferred, types of materials, what we were looking for landscaping, how we wanted it to be. It doesn't have to be exactly that way, but it shortened the process. That was the whole idea, was to make the process less frustrating, everybody on the same page, and an easier, seamless process. So that is how that all kind of came about. We wanted to take that concept of actually adding photos to descriptions of words. And so that was where Tom sat down, and he did a lot of work on this. I'm not going to take credit for any of the work, but that's where the conceptual idea came from, was, people having just different images in their heads. And so, when I think of a colonial house, it might not be the same colonial house you're thinking of, or when I think of a business complex, so we wanted to make sure that it was all in sync with our master plan and the vision at that time that the people on the Heritage Committee and the Planning Board had for the town's visual aesthetics. And that was it.
I know Tom went around taking pictures of the buildings in Londonderry, and he got pictures off the website from other places that we liked. And I know the Heritage Commission at that time sat around, and there were some we didn't think were that representative. It was just like a culling process and getting the pictures in there that the commission was content with. And it was a consensus, really, with the commission, and they put it together, so.
Now, when was that book originally designed?
2013.
2013?
Yeah, it was the same year as our master plan was adopted.
Okay.
And it was
because
kind
I
of
was on the
dovetailed along with
Heritage
the master plan.
Okay.
Mr.
And Tom
Chair.
Bianchi actually had a background, he had a degree in art and design from a prestigious school also, so.
Yes, I know he did
He's very
paintings,
talented.
and he did a.
Wood
like a-
burning?
Like a wood burning that I think he'd presented to the town, and I think, actually, he'd passed away by then, and I think his daughter had presented it to Kevin Smith.
I'm lucky enough to have his wood burning of the Grange, built Grange number 44, that I got from the Historical Society in 2012 or 13. I wanted it at a silent auction, and it's just beautiful.
Yeah, I gave
Very
one to
talented.
Reed for his birthday, of the old I can't remember what, it was the same year. So it was like 70-somethingth birthday of his blacksmith shop.
Okay.
Mr.
Jake's
Chair,
gonna,
if I could interject,
give us
please. Mr. Chair?
Oh, certainly. No, you don't, just butt in. you know?
So, yeah, I just wanted to say quickly that the lookbook so far has served the town really well. It was a great idea because, like you said, all we had before was descriptions that could be loosely interpreted. Whereas now, at least we had some good idea with pictures to describe what it was that we were looking for. And the idea to change the current lookbook came about more as a collaborative effort to improve upon what was already there. Specifically, a couple of ideas were to use buildings that actually exist now in Londonderry, whereas a lot of the pictures are from local areas but are not actually Londonderry buildings. Whereas now, I think that the Heritage Commission has done a pretty good job of keeping some of our builders in line with our vision for the town. And now we have some great buildings that we can actually point to and have pictures of to show, you know, this is a great representation of what we're looking for. And even to the point where we can talk about what the original design was versus what was changed to meet our criteria. So I think it's just gonna elaborate a little bit more and also kind of highlight some of the buildings in Londonderry.
Yeah, no, that's a great idea. I mean, we didn't have a lot to pick from back
Right,
then.
of course.
Okay, I'll turn it over to Jake. Jake has put together
So,
some,
I think,
pictures.
to start, I went a couple Heritage, I think it was 2 Heritage Committee meetings ago, maybe, I had showed up. There was a couple different plans on, I wanted to hear what they had to say. And towards the end of the meeting, it was while we were in one of the plans, the town manager, being the legal person that he is, had kind of leaned in a little bit on us and said, well, we don't have much of a, I forget how exactly we were talking about it, but we didn't have much to stand on for something we wanted them to change. I think it might have been the bank to a color or whatever. And it had kind of opened up the door of, you know, he was talking, well, it's not really in the lookbook, so it opened up the door of, you know, let's get a little bit more into the lookbook so we have a bit more to lean on for our guidelines that we currently have. So I just, you know, I threw it out there of a joint meeting to see what we think of the lookbook, what we'd like to see changed to the lookbook, added on to the lookbook, so on and so forth. I came by and saw Kelly around lunchtime today and just asked her if there was like anything that was getting presented, and she said no, she was going to kind of let us talk. So this afternoon I just took a couple hours and put something together. Most of it is a reiteration of the current lookbook, just with some newer and updated pictures, but my hope is as we go through each slide, it'll, you know, kind of make us discuss a little bit more or talk about, you know, each section or what we might want to change, that type of thing. So the first thing is what our objective is here. I would think is an architectural expectation that will help with any new development and to also enhance our current lookbook. You know, again, this is a tool that we really want to give to developers and make sure that they're using that in hopes that when they get to the Heritage Commission, the first time they go there, everything looks really good instead of having to go back a second or a third time. The mission statement for the current lookbook, if you flip to the mission statement page, it actually just says mission statement and it's blank. So I was hoping we could, as a group, could come up with a mission statement that gives us a clear intent of what we are trying to accomplish with the lookbook. So I don't know, I'd like to hear kind of what everybody thinks or how they feel about what our mission statement for this lookbook should be.
Probably something that's aesthetically pleasing and kind of represents
you know.
the ideals of Londonderry, preserving the colonial history. I think you're ready to say something there, Deb.
No, my PowerPoint won't come up, and so I asked Jeff because he's smarter than me, and now Ann's bumping in. I was just trying to get it on here so I didn't have to have a Rich in my neck. But that's okay. Don't worry about it. I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
So I would just like to get input from everybody of how we'd like to word the mission statement. I think, this is, as simple as it may seem, this is the most straightforward part of it to clearly identify what we're trying to accomplish here. So when developers open up this book, they know what it's there for.
I know we've had, some of them have been several iterations, we basically tell them, that, you gotta change this, they'll come back. But I think, quite a while back, I know when the Dolphins were on the Heritage Commission, Taco Bell, that was four iterations. And then, of course, we get written up in the, editorial of the Union Leader as Taco Hell, what we put the developer through. But the developer would come back every time.
Is that really the
So
headline?
it was iterations, and then we had the McDonald's, Mr. McDonald, and we had pictures of McDonald's from different places around the country. And before the Heritage Commission was doing this, the planning board was doing it. And John Farrell, in his travels with his work, was looking at different Home Depots and said, you got this in, Omaha, Nebraska. Why can't you do this in Londonderry? So that was 4 iterations. It was more than just the design of it, but John's got it. But they came back and they really wanted to build here. The only change that they were not willing to do was the color of the sign. The sign out front is orange. Everything else is not what they envisioned what they should have, but we envisioned it as what Londonderry should be.
What do you see as a mission statement and how it would apply to this?
Well, I'm not quite sure yet. That's why I was hoping we could get some input from everybody and see how they feel.
Well, a mission statement usually is what an organization does.
Yeah, correct,
All right, versus a book.
correct.
So maybe we're looking more like suggested guidelines than a mission statement,
Sure, anything. I just think we need a
Right now,
preface to this.
yeah.
The mission statement literally says mission statement, and then it's a blank page.
So either we delete the page.
But a mission statement can show your vision.
Correct.
And so I think that's where you're getting confused. And so a vision statement or a strategic planning statement is taking, you want to grow, you want to be conscious of the way the town develops in a succinct, unified or something like that. And again, vision for the town. That's what it has to be, kind of like what was in the, what you're looking at.
Yeah, the master
The
plan.
master plan, you kind of, this is to kind of hold hands with the master plan to kind of get people on the same page so that they're not creating more modern buildings when we don't really want or want to encourage that. Not that they can't do it, it's just we would prefer.
No, I understand that, okay?
So
But I'm
maybe we-
looking at the book itself, not visions or anything, just the book. And I love this thing on the very thing that says guidelines versus standards.
All the way
Right.
at the end, or Al, you're all the way at the end now.
Yeah, I know, I'm
So
all the
maybe
way at
we
the
should
end, but
do-
the wording is good.
Maybe we should do a vision statement as opposed to a mission statement, to Deb's.
I like that.
Deb's.
I think that would be good.
I think what we're talking about here is the vision we had when we came to Londonderry and said, this is where I want to live. What a vision statement or mission statement should state that we would want to continue to grow our town and make it look like it was here for 100 years. And that's exactly what we're all talking about, all of the houses, the way they're put together, the colors that are used. And how do you do that with modern buildings? You can do it with the color and the shape.
Earth tones, peaked roofs.
Yeah. And so our mission or vision statement should be just that. I can understand it in what I'm thinking. I'm not sure I can put it into words. Very difficult.
I see Jeff jumping out of his chair over there.
I just want to confirm, the Londonderry Lookbook is definitely an economic development tool, correct?
Correct.
Kelly? Is that something that you would
yes,
use- you would leverage for?
It's a tool that can be used to guide developers and
My, one option, I don't want to kind of our master plan has a vision, a common vision already established in there. I would think to map what's in that vision and put the same text and comments on there, because when you read the master plan, you know the amount of work and the amount of time that cross communities put into that vision statement. And I think that it's important to kind of reflect that within this tool here. And if you want, I can read it.
Absolutely.
Okay. The common vision for Londonderry is to remain a close-knit, vibrant community in the heart of protected forests and farms. Residents, businesses, and visitors should expect a government that works diligently to link development with quality of life while strengthening community and economic vitality, yes. Efficient town services, inviting public spaces, and a top-tier school system make the town a great place to live and raise a family. A highly educated workforce, proximity to a regional airport, and an efficient transportation system make the town an ideal place to work and invest in new business.
It needs to be shortened immensely.
To me, that seems too broad of like all the way across the town government, where
needs to
we're
be
really
short.
trying to focus on, what we want today and the
Aesthetics.
future of Londonderry to look like visually, you know?
We can probably pick and choose from that.
Yeah.
John's had his hand up quite a while
He's a
back.
wordsmith.
Could you approach?
You're a wordsmith, John.
Well,
Yeah, that's what I'm looking for.
for every construction of this kind of a mission statement, vision statement, whatever we're gonna call it, I've seen is very short, okay? Usually 8 or 10 words.
I'd agree that it's
Okay.
short.
And I think the next thing you have to think about is, are we out here where we're talking about the wishes and dreams of all the residents of Londonderry? Or are we in here where we're talking about what's the purpose of the lookbook?
Correct.
Okay, and I would suggest to you respectfully that the guys that are gonna be the primary users of this are the folks that are gonna come before the different commissions to say, I'd like to do this. And they're gonna spend a very brief moment in time on this page. And I would suggest that we probably consider doing the same and do something real quick on this along the lines of the purpose of the lookbook is to give developers or contractors or applicants, if we want to use that terminology, a clear vision of what these two commissions will be looking for in their architectural design. Okay, a visual picture. That's all we're offering in the lookbook.
I think that's
I
great.
agree with that.
I think you hit that right on the head. It's a
think that's
tool
great.
to do exactly what you said.
It's
Now write
it's
it
just
up.
a glimpse.
Thank you.
So I think we'll obviously take what he says and get it into writing. This next page is basically, the next few pages I took right out of our existing lookbook, but just changed pictures on them. This one right here is the identified types of development that are in the current lookbook, which are big box retail, office complexes, strip retail, and industrial parks.
Spelling.
Oh, yeah. So I did this in like 2 hours. So I'm sure there's more than one spelling mistake here. It's all in capital letters, and I went very quickly.
This is the first edition.
Exactly.
Should we add business complexes
Yeah. So
or mixed use even?
a little further down, once we
I don't
get
have it on my
through,
computer, so I'm
once
sorry.
we get through what the existing ones are, I do have a question there of, are there other types of development that should be added to this?
I was actually just going to mention that in that list and in the lookbook itself, there's not really a good wording for like a gas station.
Yeah.
Or, a bank, which is a singular
Service
unit
industry?
that's not a big box retail store. It's not an office complex. It's not in a strip or an industrial park.
Yeah.
It's just a singular building that serves one purpose.
So
And
service industries, like service types of buildings,
something
banks,
like
fast
that.
food,
So yeah, I'd love
blah,
to
blah,
see
blah.
something like that
Correct.
also added in there so that they have an idea of everything and not just large
Somebody writing all this down?
developments.
How does a drive-through line supposed to look? How does it, fit in? That,
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Canopies
So
of
I
gas
do think
stations,
there's certainly room to add on to, these first, what is it, the first four? They're just what's there today. I wanted to go through them, see what's written down in them. And then we can certainly add on to them. I do think there's some missing.
Yeah.
Part of me, one other part of me almost wonders if we, in the revamped lookbook, do we get, that would be tough, but, do we almost get rid of trying to do it by each type of development, and do we do it much more based off of what we're looking at, fronts of buildings or roof lines, that type of thing, where it's more based off of the architecture than the type of building, if that makes
I
sense.
remember my original conversation, we went through that, and we
Yeah.
were gonna do that as also part of it, shapes that we like, shutters, there was supposed to be all of that. I wanna say, unfortunately, I don't think Tom got to it.
Yeah,
But you're right, you're spot on with how that should go.
yeah.
But that
part
should
of-
be added on in the.
Exactly, so it's trying to figure out of how we do it.
I do think part of the reason for that is just because if you think about it, right, like you go up to the industrial park, we're not looking for them to put roof facades to hide
Correct.
their mechanicals and stuff. It's an industrial park. So
Correct.
we
Yeah,
know that they're going to
that's where
build
you
a
want the
giant square
separation.
box that's made out of
Yeah.
metal. So we didn't want to try to be guiding them towards architecturally pleasing designs when they're literally meant just to be durable. And
want 10 different roof lines on FedEx?
Right, right. So I think that is probably what led us to where we are.
Yeah.
Although we could probably break it down a little more simply and say industrial park versus
Retail.
everything else.
Exactly.
Right,
Maybe
like
big
anything
box
that's-
retail, strip retail, and those single gas station type things all just fall under that,
Right.
one broad retail.
Almost like a by zone, maybe.
Yeah. Yep.
Industrial zone is industrial buildings, and then everywhere else, commercial residential has to have X.
Yep.
Do we also want to look at the look of apartment buildings as well?
Those are included in
Substantial
our design
structures.
submissions,
It's,
so
I would
uh,
agree.
I think so.
Multifamily, so.
Absolutely.
We have no design review of that, and that is part of the site planning. They have to go through a site plan.
This is the Elliott, right?
Yeah, yep.
This is boring.
But, I mean, I like the idea of like types of materials. I think Jim could be a good source of the types of materials. There's good stuff, there's bad stuff. Not that we require them, but, something to suggest to someone that they do it. That's usually our mode has been suggesting, and not arguing it. And of course, we've had multiple iterations, and we come to a consensus, and it's, kind of a compromise. Some of the buildings are clearly a compromise.
I think the other thing too is that planning board works hard in trying to accomplish this.
And if you speak in the mic, nobody's gonna hear you. Sorry, I don't mean to make you get up.
You come right up here, Jim.
I know that feeling.
You gotta keep moving,
Yeah, I know. I'm trying anyway. I know that the planning board works hard to achieve this. I know the Heritage Board works hard to achieve this. But there's one thing over the years that I've noticed is we miss the rehab work. For instance, we work hard at gas stations to make sure they have a nice canopy and it's not just a flat roof. And then, was it Speedway or Global or whatever it is down there in front of
Yeah, that change.
Shaw's? What did they do? They went and did exactly what we kind of don't want to do. And we're fighting, not fighting, we're suggesting to the new people to come in and give us one standard, but then, once they're by us,
And once they have the approved site plan, someone else comes in with the same use. and they
or
don't
it's a
use the
rehab,
plan, and
like Speedway. Speedway was a rehab.
That would get a lot deeper into,
Well, I mean, it's just something to think about,
yeah,
that's
no,
all.
I'm just
not
trying to think of
believe
from a
it.
process standpoint, that would have to be like
Well,
A whole
changing
separate
our-
process.
We'd have to.
Right
have
now,
to
the
really look at
design
the
review
statutes if we have
triggers
that power, that
our
ability.
review, and there's nothing to trigger it if it's a rehab.
that's what I'm saying.
So
you know?
it would have to be like a bylaw change or something would have to happen, so it would be,
Yeah, I think we'd have to look at the statutes if we have been delegated that specific power to do
Yeah.
that.
Can I ask a question to staff, though? do you guys know something about, I seem to remember years ago about a percentage of, or a substantial renovation, then something has to come up for review. Does that still hold water, if I'm putting it right?
There are certain trigger points, if you will, that cause something to come before the board for a site plan amendment or, to start that design review process. It is very site-specific in terms of what they're actually doing and what has existed there previously. Do you wanna add anything?
But typically like a canopy or something like that doesn't.
Yeah.
Doesn't meet that standard?
Yeah, it doesn't
Planning and
trigger the-
engineering doesn't
yeah.
even see it.
Or even like a material and color change, they could redo their building and change colors and materials, and that doesn't trigger a design review, correct?
Not from.
Not typically, no.
Yeah.
It'd only be the building inspector, which is the enforcement process, is the building inspector, code enforcement officer. And they would look at the original, site plan and see what's changed, and it's their discretion of what.
Al, can I ask you?
I just want to see if we're on the same page. So what Jim is bringing up is things like when the car dealership, I'm not going to say their name.
That's fine.
changed
I
their
understand what
whole
you're saying.
facade, and the place next to them that serves hamburgers changed their whole facade to change that whole look and feel for that area. Is that what you were talking
Yeah,
about? I just wanted
exactly.
to make sure I
Here's a
understood.
perfect example. When you guys were in meetings with Home Depot, what would prevent Home Depot from repainting that roof orange?
Nothing.
There you go. So, I mean,
It's only been good
it's
faith.
tough. You work one way, and then all of a sudden, once that's done, we could have an orange roof there. And can you stop them?
That was on my list to talk to you guys about.
Yeah, that would probably be, we should have the code enforcement officer and see what they can do or can't do,
Well, what can they do?
But I know the place, it was a Ford dealership quite a few years ago, that all of a sudden neon lights were all over the whole thing, and there's nothing we could do.
Because Art, can it be a new
So-
rule,
so-
whatever? Because I know.
So you got to speak, because
Go
people at home won't be able to hear you.
Okay, whatever it needs to be, a rule, whatever, because we know now if they don't go out of the original blueprint, like the gas station and the car dealership, then they can do what they want, and then that gets the whole thing helter-skelter with, colors and everything, so, and that defeats what we do on Heritage. So I'm wondering can that be a new thing that they still come to us?
Maybe this is
Because
something,
otherwise it's gonna
Mike
keep
can research,
going.
What we can do after the fact, They have an approved site plan, and they can do certain changes. What powers do we have to keep it the same, It's a-
The
Can I-
percentage
Tough.
of change.
That's like telling somebody they have to get a permit to change the color of their house.
Well, so.
Well, no, house is different, but I mean, commercial.
I think it might be a percentage of change, right?
And
Like if
it
you're
really
changing it
depends on
more
the
than-
site and what's existing there. There are multiple factors. It's not a simple yes or no question. But when we're talking about potentially regulating color, it's important to consider
That's getting into legal.
the consequences or implications of doing that. Meaning, if somebody wants to put up a red building and we don't allow red buildings, they now have to go for a variance. It's getting into some pretty restrictive
Yeah,
regulations.
it's into legal.
So I think, having a guidance document like this is great. If the will of the planning board is for staff to look further into that type of regulation, we can certainly do that, but I just want to make sure that we understand both sides of that.
I think what's most effective is having the book, so someone who comes in new, saying, and some developers will say, well, what do you like, type of thing. Having the lookbook is what is, sets the tone in their mind from the very beginning, and they tend to be more, into our mode of thinking for building design and materials and everything.
And I'll also add that myself, John, town manager, we do have, preliminary meetings with developers more often than not before they come to these boards, and we do reference the lookbook, we do reference guidance documents, and we encourage them to take those into consideration before they have completely, done their site plan and all of their architectural drawings and whatnot. So having an updated version of this will certainly be helpful in that regard.
Now, hopefully that'll help with this, the places that stay within the blueprint. I mean, because it's, like I said, it's going against what we do, is to see all this, the big logos and colors, and so you think that'll rein them in a little bit when they see or hear what they have to say. I'm just getting,
In discussions we've had when they come before the Heritage Commission, they'll change, for the most part. They will change, and they will work with us. There's been a few that have walked out on us even, so. But that's, the way it goes. I think once, I know with the planning board, once we knew a company really wanted to come, then you had more latitude on saying, what you would like and everything, And most companies, I think, want to be part of the community and are willing to make changes to keep the community identity, but they want their trademarks, their colors and everything also to identify themselves.
but now is there an answer to this, so if they stay within the blueprint,
There's no easy answer. But,
well, or can there be a new rule or something to,
yeah,
so-
that would be easy, that would be nice, but one that doesn't exist right now, and I think we have to research it. We probably might
Yeah,
need
could you- yeah, so we-
even enabling legislation,
Yeah.
passed by the legislature, signed by the governor to allow us to.
but
do things.
do something so that we can have that rule or that power, that would be, because then it leaks out, they get to do their own thing, they don't go out of the blueprint, we can paint orange and red, and so that goes against what we do, we're trying to keep everything
Yeah.
modest or whatever, and then they.
I mean, so far, I think we've achieved a balance, and it's really working with people and developing a consensus.
Yeah,
I think in terms of the lookbook, if you will, this is certainly a separate, this is more of a, how do we accomplish this? I think it's outside of the parameters here of trying to update the lookbook. You know what I mean? I think it's a lot more in depth than trying to do what we're trying to accomplish here. Well, I think it should certainly be something that's looked at. I don't know if it kind of adheres to what we're working on right now.
Yeah, there are longer-term things which
Yeah.
we've digressed into, but, the lookbook is what's going to basically be at the developer's eyes at the very first thing,
If we were looking to address this, I think rather than specific restrictions, it would probably behoove us to look more into what triggers a review application.
Correct.
In which case, their new design would be passed through us, and then instead of saying we don't allow red buildings, we could just, all of us, once again, look at the design and try to steer them in the right direction, rather than, trying to rule with an iron fist and say you can't use the color red.
yeah.
Or for
We have
example, if they want to
work
move
with
from
the
a.
new businesses that want to come to town also. And if they have issues about a lookbook or have their own vision of what it is, let's explore that. Because I remember Jim Butler once, so we were discussing something, and he went back and he researched into that business's other properties that already exist, and what we saw that we wouldn't mind have come to Londonderry of what already exists for that company, with modifications even,
Right.
that's more acceptable to the Londonderry community.
Yeah, I think the idea should be more towards discussion and compromise rather than our way or the highway.
correct.
You're right, it's not our way, the highway, because we may see the highway more than we want.
And that's
But,
how we've been traditionally. I know when Hannaford first came in, their building design looked like a airport hangar.
That's what Vicky said, that Judy Vickers.
Oh, yeah, Junie and Marilyn Ham, and, I mean, they were, it was just like, what? What's this? Oh, we worked with them, and that's the design they have now. Some of the architectural features drop snow on you when you go into the building.
Did you take these pictures yourself, Jake?
99.9% of them are off Google.
Okay.
I think I took 3 pictures, of which one didn't make it onto the PowerPoint somehow.
I actually went around town a couple weekends ago and took pictures of a whole bunch of buildings that I thought would.
We got a lot of the same ones?
We got all the same buildings.
I was going to say, I have a few more to add to the list. Number one would be on my list, would be 50 Nashua Road. Marge may know this. this is the Clock Tower building that, we call the Clock Tower building, but I believe it's called, what is it, the Londonderry Square.
Yeah.
St.
And
Mary's Bank in
it
there.
was, I believe, built around 1986, so it's almost 40 years old. And that traditional design has stood the test of time for that long. If you go in and look at their courtyard, it's amazing how beautiful it is.
That was
And
developed by,
and even though the parking lot is in front of the building, large parking lot, it has treed islands in the parking lot and berms in the front where the bushes are and all that. All around the property was trees before they widened Gilcrest Road. And it just is a beautifully constructed building. It's so cohesive, all the different facets of it, and the additions on the back of it. Imagine that's 40 years old, and it still looks like what we want Londonderry to look like.
that's motif number one. That was developed by Dennis Sargent. And I was on the planning board then. This was back, I think, like 86, 87. I was the ex officio. And Dennis wanted this design, and we were just like enamored. There was the Heritage Commission wasn't involved with design at that time. I think it was strictly historical type of thing. But the planning board just really liked it. And McDonald's went in across the street, and Dennis was the one who did some of I think, the initial development work, and wanted that building to reflect the same design that he had across the street. McDonald's has changed it, and that was another compromise.
Are the office buildings, the strip of office buildings behind it, part of that same design, or was that separate?
Yes, it's part
all part of the same
it
design.
also. It was Dennis's project, and it's like one of these things, you wish you could develop more of them. And I know back then we wanted to kind of, the ideal was Bedford, 101 through Bedford, that design there.
And to your point about kind of a 40-year-old building, I just turned 40. I think I'm getting better with age. So.
Yeah.
You're a youngster.
I mean, that said, I think this is great. What we're trying to accomplish here. You're revitalizing the lookbook. How do we want to kind of proceed here? Do we want to go in? Is the text within the 2013 lookbook? Is that text that we want to keep and maintain? Do we want to update any of that?
To me, I feel like it should be updated with the whole thing. I just took the original text, so we
Yeah.
had something to look at.
How do we
But-
want to divide and conquer
Yeah,
this?
do we want to, I wasn't even going to read through slides 5 through 8. Those are just the current types and what's listed. I don't know if maybe we want to break it up between, obviously you're going to handle the mission statement. Does a couple people want to do what is considered retail on here? Another couple people want to do office complexes. To Ted's point, which at slide 9, other types of development, do we want to, one, identify what those other types of development are, and two, expand on them from there,
My thought was everyone go out, take 5 pictures. Bring the pictures back, probably on this, and see what the commonality of pictures are. That gives us, I think, a good direction right there. And then look at the other pictures and what's good. And if we, say, gee, maybe we take more, take 5 more pictures, and then we could meet in a situation like this, joint meeting, just a workshop, just to discuss it and
Do we wanna-
say thumbs up or thumbs down on pictures.
Do we want to split this up at all, where, say, Chris and I are solely focused on retail?
I was
Jeff
just
and
gonna
Deb are
say, one of
solely
the-
focused on office complexes, so we're not all running around taking
Pictures of the same
I took 5
buildings.
pictures, his pictures are the same 5. Mine are strictly on retail. Deb's are strictly on office.
I won't be here, so even though I'd love to
You
be
can still
part of this.
contribute, still-
I did want to add to what you're saying, the 5 pitches, it kind of intrigued me, because you're saying in town, but what about taking 5 in, so if you've got businesses, right, or retail, and then you took 5 in town and 5 outside of town, what if somebody brought back something that looks like Faneuil Marketplace, or a couple of places in the North End, or South Boston? This is how I'd like to see it look. Whatever. I don't know. I'm just making stuff up. But you know what I'm saying? So you can look and maybe even bring in something a little different. It might not be colonial. It might, I don't know what period that is in Boston, like, is that, what's that called? Revolutionary.
War.
I don't know.
Man,
But
you
you know,
don't
it's just a different flavor. I mean, because it expands the palette. That was, you know, when you were saying 5 pitches, we all have different likes and dislikes, but, you know, they'd be fun to see the 5 pitches in the town, but then outside of town, you know, whoever goes to Bedford or Vermont or whatever they go and
Yeah, whoever's intrigued wherever
See
they
some-
travel to something and they just take a picture of it. Because, I mean, I look at the lookbook as kind of evolving also. We, you know, can keep adding to it.
I think for me, to your point, Deb, one thing for me that I don't like about the current lookbook is that there's pictures of it, of stuff that's not in town, which I could understand, you know, back in 2013 or so have you, we've developed so much from then. You know, it's when making the lookbook and giving people ideas of the stuff we want to see, you know, I think it should be the really good work that the Heritage
No,
Commission's
so
done.
like, so business,
you
right?
know?
Your first picture would be of maybe 2 in town, but
Yeah.
then some other ones that are a different type of architect that we don't
That we-
have in town.
but we like.
But we would like it if you feel so to do it. That, I think it's a blend,
Yeah.
you know? It just needs a nice blend. This way we can expand our palette. So it isn't, Londonderry isn't all exactly the same. You know, these 2 styles or 3 styles. It now has like 5 different styles that are like the top, and whoever y'all pick it, you know?
Okay.
Does that make sense or no?
Yeah, no,
Okay.
I can see what you're saying.
Sometimes I don't make sense.
On the
so-
other types of development, you know, would it be something that maybe we should focus one small part of the lookbook to be on things that we don't want? Things that we don't like to see?
I think that was a legal issue, Jake. When we first started this, I remember that they said we can't say what they can't do. We want to encourage them on what they can
Things we
do.
would be discouraging them from building.
Right, but we shouldn't use current
shouldn't-
Londonderry businesses, because that's
And
like a
excuse
smack
Sketch that it'll
upside
make them
the
fix
head.
it.
This is how you backdoor address the rehab issue that was brought up earlier. And I said it in a meeting, and I was half kidding, but I'll say it here, sort of a hall of shame, okay, where you put up horror story buildings, whether they came from rehabs or however they got there. We missed them. There are a few of those, okay? And we put those up where people can see them, okay? That will take care of the buildings being painted purple after we've approved a design. It would also take care of folks not wanting to end up in that situation.
I know what you're saying. I think it's a good idea, but I think you should talk to legal about it. I really do.
I was just gonna say, I think it would be a bad idea probably to more or less kind of badmouth
Yeah,
designs of
let's stay on
businesses
the
in
positive
town.
think-
side of.
If I could add a point, I think Jeff pointed out this is supposed to be an economic development tool.
Yeah.
So I would strongly discourage
Yes.
putting in existing businesses.
Maybe
that
not so
you
much
don't
businesses,
like.
but specific
I
materials.
think
Design
we
elements.
do know what we
Design,
don't
yeah,
want
discourage
anyway.
design elements.
So the other way you could get around that conceivably would be to get a little bit more granular in this thing. You know, when I think about heritage meetings and guys that get asked to come back a second or even a third time, it's things like the style of windows they put in. So maybe we should give them some examples, specific examples of windows. And yes, they might be on certain kinds of properties, but the roof lines, exterior building materials, pictures of those specific things. Not so much that they're on the building, but that they can see the part. And your chairman has educated me on mullions and windowsills and those other little things aren't, okay? You know, so.
Jim has helped us, and then I know quite a few years ago, we had a architect on there, and I was learning all, you know, pilasters and all this other stuff that architects use. Some of them I've forgotten now, but and the word I always liked for the window design is fenestrations. And that's the, you know, the cross hatchings. And then I know we did change it to something else because people didn't know what fenestrations were. They never had Latin, I guess, so it's.
But I know we've had, the last 2 heritage meetings, we've had somebody that we've asked to return based on horrible windows on the initial presentation. Okay.
Right, but we should just point out windows and all that. It's a matter of how you put everything together, too. Because, you know, it's, okay, I'm looking at this, I shouldn't be. Remember what we went through. I mean, the window could stand alone as beautiful, but when it's combined with a lot of other elements, it may not fit. I mean, it may stick out like a sore thumb. So it's how all elements of the building come together. So I like the idea of showing buildings that we like. And if there's some type of innovation in design, but with a traditional character, I think that's what we should be heading for.
Do you have something, Jim?
I think I'm getting off cue, but anyway, I'll ask because
You just approach
these are the
the
most important.
mic, please.
Oh, yeah.
Someone should just put it down.
It's an exercise regimen.
I'm just curious, how many people know what a specification book is?
We have a basic idea, but I
All
need to be
right. I
educated
mean,
further.
I'm just curious. I mean,
You've
maybe
educated us.
What?
You were the one that started
Well,
talking about it.
And maybe not these members, but as people roll in, there are a lot of people that don't understand how a building is built, what the specification book is. I mean, there's what, 152 section to a specification book. I'm working on buildings in Boston, and the spec books are this big, and it's the Bible. It tells them how to build it, what the materials they're supposed to use. It's pretty interesting. I think maybe we should look into some type of training or educational seminar in what a spec book does, how to read a set of plans, what to look for. It's pretty interesting, but not a lot of people understand it. They really don't. And I think it's, you know, I know I'm off the path, but I think it could be good education for board members coming in now.
Yeah,
I really do.
it probably would, because I know what I've learned, I've picked up along the way.
Yeah.
You'll learn from the, you know, as the applicants come in, you know, their architects, you know, explain stuff. And it's been, you know, like on-the-job training. And if there's something a little more formal that, you know, we could, you know, either get online or have someone come in, spend an hour to go through, you know, basic architectural design and, you know, at least give us an idea of what we think looks good architecturally. So when we speak with an architect, we have, you know, at least make some sense.
On the next slide here, maybe is some of what we're talking about, instead of so much of what we don't like, but, you know, focusing less on the entire building in the picture, but more, you know, creating a section that's more specific to what materials are preferred. You know, I know each kind of one talks a little bit about, you know, we like this color or material or that, but, you know, making it a bit more specific to types of materials, which wouldn't just be what's used on the side of the building, but, you know, what we're using for mullions or glass or whatever.
Shingles.
Exactly.
Kinds of stuff, yeah.
So, you know, I think really expanding on a preferred materials section would help out a bit. Again, this is something, to Jeff's point, you know, if we could kind of delegate out here,
Well, I think
who would want to take on what?
your dad would be good at that. Jim would be. I think, Jim, that would
just
be
got
good for
volunteered.
your role.
You're the chairman.
You're now doing the whole thing.
Here's a perfect example. Does everyone remember Convenient MD?
That makes
How
me
they can-
ill.
All right.
That makes me ill.
But
Yes.
I don't
I
like
don't
it.
want to say we're the fight, but I think that we could have convinced them. Because if you go to Wyndham and you go to exit 3, go look at Convenient MD. Totally different.
Yeah.
And he, you know, I mean, he was going to have it his way, and, you know, he didn't get his way up in Wyndham, I can tell you that. But I mean,
Art,
Yes.
does this lookbook also affect Woodmont as well?
No. Woodmont is its own thing. It has its own master plan, has different designs in there. There are concerns with Woodmont and, because it's not very specific on designs or anything. So Woodmont is a whole nother thing. You
yeah,
know,
but with Woodmont, they still have to come in front of the boards to get certain approvals. So
Yeah.
don't,
I think it's still a
I
good
mean,
tool
think
for
about
them
it,
to
guys.
see and look at to say,
Derry Medical Building is in Woodmont, but Derry Medical had to come in front of our boards.
Oh,
to get
yes.
approvals.
Yeah, and we had to make, I think we had a special meeting, just,
Yeah,
get it into the design that
It was-
we liked.
It was continued, yeah, from one meeting to another in
Yeah.
order to try to rein it in a little bit.
Yes.
And I think we may need to have a separate meeting on Woodmont and all that, but I think a preface to that meeting that we need to get back to the architectural designs that were presented by Delaney almost 13 years ago,
That would be, yes, 13 years
2010.
ago.
2010. So I think we need to move back
2010.
to the architectural designs, and we have not been seeing those that the architect
Because,
brought before us.
their master plan is 13, well, our town master plan's 13, our lookbook is 13, so, yes, we have got to get things, into the current, because I think as time goes on, people's tastes change a little bit, and as we get newer people in here, they have their designs that they like and everything.
That-
Most of them are here because they like what Londonderry looks like right now, so.
I thought the designs that were brought forward by the architect of the design were very much Londonderry and the Londonderry kind of feel. And we need to start moving back and pushing the developers to design the way that it was presented in the first place.
Yes. Roger?
I think we're getting a little bit far afield on what we're talking about here. Is, I worked and developed stores in malls and stuff. And if I were going into a mall and they showed me a book and said, these are the sort of things that go well in our malls, that's what I think this should be. These are the sort of buildings that we already have, and we like these buildings. If you have a concept that is close to one of these, they don't have to be exact, but this is what we like in our town, I think you're gonna do well. That book that you're talking about there, the specs book, I went to school to be a supervisor, and that is one of the things you look at, but it changes every year. And it's always this big, It's all on computer now, I assume. But, yeah, so I like a lot of the pictures in here, and I think they do give somebody who has never been to Londonderry and looks at these can get a feeling of what they're gonna make that'll blend in. And
Yeah, I know the early days, even before I had a town planner, the developer, being on the board of selectmen, developers would come in and, talk to the board or anything, or talk to individuals. And the only thing I would tell them is take a ride around town and look at what we got here. That's what we like.
that's here.
And that's, and I think, Tom and Deb had the same idea, is let's put it in a book instead of having them traipse around, it's. But,
So I think you got volunteered for,
Materials.
you got volunteered for picking out materials that are
Well-
preferred.
that's where the expertise is.
Big of this.
I mean, I think the overall thing that even in the master plan for Woodmont is, we like to have a combination of materials. Brick, wood, and stone. I think that's important.
Yeah.
And you have to understand, some of these, I have to get up.
Don't forget Rhode Island.
Some of these developers, especially people, developers or owners that are looking to put in franchises, they are going to try to put in, number one, that they're always looking at their marketability, their signs, their
Branding.
statement, their branding, okay? They are going to come in and they're going to show you the most economical way that they can build that building. And we can have a disagreement about this, but I've been in it long enough to watch it. And it's correct. If you take a look at, and we have a freestanding Dunkin' Donuts at Mohawk. Take a look at that design. Then go and take a look at the freestanding building on 28, the Dunkin' Donuts there. So when I have I have some tolerance when developers come in and they try to stick something in front of you that doesn't fit in town. And they say, no, we're gonna go with it. Well, you know something? Don't tell me that you can't change, because you can change. They will change, but it'll be a little bit of a push. And it starts right from them coming through the door to meetings with the planning department, right through all our boards. And we see it. Something's a disconnect because I've had people come, I've talked to developers. They don't want to develop in Londonderry. And think about it. We've had some people come in front of the Heritage Board 3 or 4 times. How many times did Bluebird Storage come in front of us? Do you remember? I mean, what's happening? They're not getting by the time they get to us, there's a disconnect someplace because they shouldn't have to come back 3 or 4 times. You know, how many times do you continue something? You know, it's a little bit of a struggle. And I've heard that, you know, it costs a lot of money, engineering, to come into Londonderry. It costs owners, the engineering is, and I'm not saying it's right, wrong, or indifferent, but we have to look at it. And for people to think that all developers that are coming in or looking in town, there are developers that don't want to develop with us. I've brought a developer up to the manager's office, and he was very frank with the manager. So these are the things, it's all about communication. It really is. I think this is important, but it's only important if the planning department has the proper tool. I don't want it to be a joke. I don't want it to be a burden on them to say, oh yeah, look at this book. You know what I'm saying? Same thing, and I've said it before. It's visual. We have a meeting room up where they bring them. Put pictures on the walls that we want, like out in this wall that shows historic. They're sitting there and they see it. They don't even have to look at the book, and all of a sudden they're in the room and they're looking around, and they have a feel right away. You don't even have to say anything to them. So, I mean, I think we need to use the tools, and we have to develop better tools. I really do. And I think this needs to be developed. Do I think that all the pictures are appropriate in Londonderry? No, I agree with Deb. I think we should go out and gather up some pictures that look that we like. Because the bottom line is we still have a lot of development in town in certain areas that we want to go. And we may not have the appropriate pictures.
Yeah,
Or we may not be able to tell the whole story with 1 or 2 pictures that are in town. I can tell you were talking about the clock towers. Dr. Lundgren, this goes way back when it started. There was some type of committee, hope you're listening, Dave, complained and said, you know something, this is the way we envisioned our town to go, was the clock towers. And take a look at 102 now. He said, what happened, Jim? We've kind of fallen off a little bit, and we got to bring this together. And this is a good start.
A fine example, I think, for a vision would be, I think, a very good New England feel is Mashpee Commons.
Is what?
Mashpee Commons down in Massachusetts. near
My
the Cape.
brother was the town planner for Mashpee for
I
33
mean,
years.
it's very much a New England
And he
feel.
was there from the start in 1986 when that project started. And still, he retired like 3 years ago from
And
that.
it's very much a New England feel that I think would, you know, it has a lot of the building types that we would like to see here for imagery.
That is retail on the bottom and residences on the upper floors. That's the way
Affordable
it was built.
residence.
Like a Woodmont Commons, like a, you know, a PUD type.
It's
type
designed by
area.
DPZ. It's the
Yeah,
one-
yeah, because I remember, Ian, your brother, seeing his name on some of the papers that came, you know, from the design of the whole area and everything.
Yeah, that development came up during.
Yeah,
sure,
and then when Marty Sarugas was on the Heritage Commission, Marty grew up in Mashpee, and he was very enamored of that whole development, and that's what he kind of liked for design. It wasn't in the book or anything, it was all, you know, up here.
Can't be all up here if we're expecting.
Yeah, we gotta get it, you know, digitally and on paper.
And I think we should all take a look at, it's the website dpz.com for Delaney's Architectural Company. They have multiple different projects across the country that they've worked on. And it's a lot of, I think, the architectural designs that we'd like to see here in Londonderry. There's good examples down in the Maryland area, down in the North Carolina area, in Ohio. and as well, and, you know, it gives you the imagery and as well for Mashpee. And I think it's a lot of the different architectural styles that I think will fit here quite well.
I think a lot of what the design and everything of Woodmont came from, because their consultant was Shook Kelly in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Bless you.
That's what I think
Bless you.
what is there.
They work with DPZ. DPZ design.
Probably, because
It is.
there was a relationship there anyway. And,
TPU,
So-
DC.
On to the next one, I went into kind of like some discouraged materials. It's a couple slides before that, Kelly. One more, or keep going until you get the bluebird. So, you know, it's funny, I hear people all the time say, oh my God, that storage building in North Londonderry is so disgusting. And my first response is, if only you knew what the rest of them looked like. You know, this is a perfect example of something the Heritage Commission did such a good job on, taking, you know, a tough building that's all one color and making it fit much better into Londonderry, with the accents it has. So, you know, a little bit to the, how do we get that there before, how do we get them to do that before they get to us type thing? You know, to me, this is a perfect example. And again, maybe this is not the best way to do it because like we just discussed, we probably shouldn't talk about the things that we don't like. But, you know, how do we get it across in the conceptual phase and the design review phase that, you know, for a national company like this or a franchise company like this, you know, how do we tell them, not tell them, but how do we help them understand
had an
the issue
idea.
they're gonna have if they present the building on the left? You know, how can we do that before they get to us? So they come with something a little bit more to the right. But I think we should identify what materials are discouraged, EFS, a lot of it, as you can see in this, colors, textures, that type of thing. Let's get those materials identified. So in the lookbook, it says, you know, materials that are discouraged. I think it's Bedford's design review checklist or one checklist, their subdivision checklist, I don't know, whatever checklist it is. You know, it actually lists out discouraged materials on it and encouraged materials on it, that type of thing. Whereas, you know, they're checking that off in more of the design review phase than when they get to Heritage Commission. But, you know, if we can come up with some materials that we don't like, or a combination of materials we don't like to see together, combination of colors we don't like to see together, you know, I use those two pictures because they're a very, you know, the Bluebird is a very good example of that one on the left, I believe, was Bedford. It's
yeah, which I don't know how it got by.
Yeah,
Bedford.
no kidding.
It's
it's a
amazing.
very ugly building, you know, whereas the one on the right, though, you know, it is still this giant, massive commercial building. It looks a heck of a lot better than what's everywhere else. And that is the only one of the, I don't know, 10 or 15 of them that don't look exactly like the one on the left.
Hope I don't see
So
it.
I think that's a really great example of working with the developer. I just wish they did it before they got to the Heritage Commission.
Mr. Chairman, I have to respectfully disagree with Jake as far as non-compatible materials and colors. There's a product called EFS. I don't know if everyone knows what EFS stands for, but EFS
Heard
is
about
on the
it,
left. EFS is on the left if you're looking at that screen, okay? When you talk about cost of building materials and time, it's a lot quicker and it's less money. So you see a lot of EFS. I'm not opposed to EFS if it's done properly and it's spotted throughout a building or it's used under windows. You know, EFS gives you more of a monolithic color, a monolithic style. Well, look at that. I told that owner, it looks like a battleship. If I want to see a battleship, I go down to Fall River. I can tell you, just so you guys know, that we had several meetings with them, and the meetings got pretty hot, and we had to take a time out, and they had to leave the room because that's how hot it was about, we're not going to have that. And that was the compromise. Is it 100% of what I wanted or they wanted? No, but that was a good compromise. But I can tell you, I still get people upset at me because that showed up.
So when you guys were just talking about all this stuff,
Yeah.
and I'm thinking to myself, the process you were saying, the process. So if we know that someone like, and I'm gonna pick on Bluebird's coming, right? I don't know who could do this or if there's time to do this. Do a quick Google search. Show me images of, Bluebird storage buildings. Pick out the ones you like and then send, these are things that we would like to see, or have it, or I don't know how to, but you know what I mean? This way we would already know before they got here.
Yeah.
Look, we know you do these buildings. This is the one, these are the 4 we'd like to see you build here. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do, but I think that's difficult, and I think let's face it, when we started that lookbook, one of the members got sick, and, we finished it pretty quickly. That is a huge statement for the town of Londonderry. And we've got to build on that, because they come in to the building department, they sit down, and we need something that's strong and bold and said, this is our statement. And it needs to be changed. This lookbook has got to be, how many years old?
10, 20.
It needs time for change. It needs time for an upgrade. I get it. But I mean, make it a book that we can be proud of.
Right, but this wouldn't be a book that I'm talking about.
Well, I know, but
So
that
it would be
takes
a
you.
heads
that-
up to like the people on the Heritage, right?
Yeah.
Maybe it's an email to them, Bluebird's gonna be coming in advance, Google search it, get some images. So when they come with the lousy design, you can turn around and go, I'm familiar with you doing a design and this, and it looks beautiful. Can you do that
I
with
do
us?
that all the time.
No, but
I
I'm
just
saying
go
if other
Google.
members, if other members did it, if it's part of their training to be on the board as to something to do, and that, also could be the planning board as well. We know so-and-so's coming, they've done buildings like that, you know what I mean?
No, I understand. It's communication.
It is communication.
Yeah, and one of the ladies who used to be on the Heritage Commission, she had gone on the internet, this is McDonald's at Exit 5 that was being planned, and she had all these nice pictures of McDonald's, and when it was a corporate guy they had sent in, we called him Mr. McDonald. And I think the second iteration, we had all these pictures, and the question was, why don't you build that in Londonderry? And the guy didn't really have an answer, and then we never saw him after that. They were gone, but I think there was some, that was stuff that was going on there with the owner of the property at the time.
To what he was saying with mixture of materials, it's not like I hate EFS either. Another good example of that is it was the 3rd page, which I wish he was here because I love his building, Mr. Varani. It's a good looking building that's a mixture of a few different materials. It's got a lot of EFS in it, but it's got these nice standout sections of brick. So it's not like I hate EFS, but it's about a mixture of colors here.
But it's balanced with the large windows
That's what I
and the
mean,
brick.
exactly,
It's,
exactly.
you don't notice the big expanse of it,
Exactly.
It's very interesting building.
There is mention in the lookbook now, and a brief mention about mixing materials. It does say that we encourage mixed materials rather than having, like you said, we want to see wood, we want to see asphalt, we want to see stone, brick, rather than a monolithic structure. So
Yeah.
it's touched on very briefly in there now, but I feel like that's something we could expound upon a little bit.
Yeah.
But also think of the clock tower. It's basically, wood painted white, but it's beautifully done. It's not a flat facade. It's
the overall.
Well, that's the whole thing. It's the roof
Interesting.
lines. And,
Moldings,
that's to
architecture,
the
yeah.
next thing is types of roofs. I think we should have a section in there that's pretty specific. I feel like it's something I hear a lot when I listen to Heritage Commission meetings is roof lines. Let's pick some buildings out in town. Again, I was just kind of going online and seeing what I could find. You can see that none of those roofs are flat, including the new Noria that I know we worked pretty hard on. Back to that Sunoco, it's got the big flat roof, whereas the Noria here has got some architecture to it. So I think we should have a section that focuses on preferred roof types, you know, just a bunch of pictures that has all these different roof lines that we like. Whereas opposed to the next page, two much older buildings in town, you know, they're the big old flat roofs, which I think is something that we want to stay away from. You can tell this is really dated because it says Ginger Garden on it. Hasn't been Ginger Garden since I was like 10. Yeah.
Sprint.
Yeah, no kidding. You know, so maybe we don't take pictures of discouraged roof types, but we have a little synopsis of, you know, staying away from flat roofs and roofs that are all on one plane, because sometimes flat roofs look good. You know, I think there was a picture in here, maybe there wasn't, I might have taken it out. You know, roofs with different planes. You got a big flat building, but it's got a few different planes on it. It looks good. A little bit like the Market Basket Plaza, but even the Annie's thing has still got something. But it is essentially a big flat roof until you get to Market Basket, but it's all on different planes, so it looks halfway decent.
Yeah, and I think just a general comment on the overall lookbook, and I totally get we don't want to say anything discouraging. I would not be comfortable putting any businesses' pictures
Exactly.
in it. But we could also expand and put more pictures of rooftops and really kind of explain why we like those rooftops,
Yeah.
why we like bricks, why we like stone facade. Explain the why,
Yeah.
and have that connect more to the community.
Yeah.
Developers are going to come in. They're going to do what they want. But at the very least, it gives boards, current and future boards, kind of a tool, gives economic development a tool to really kind of say, yeah, we want you to come in, we want you to be part of our community. These are the reasons why, we want this particular building designed this way. And just having that narrative within the book itself, I think is a powerful
Is
statement.
getting what we're trying to get at.
Right.
Exactly. Without saying we don't want this.
Exactly.
Yeah. I
It just shouldn't
totally
be
agree.
too long. It should be,
Correct. Yeah, more picture, less little words, big pictures,
Oh,
white
yes.
pictures, in your face
little
pictures.
words,
Yeah.
exactly.
Like we like bricks.
Straight to the
Yeah.
point.
Add what I into that?
They're gonna stop reading.
Maybe it should just be a PowerPoint. We like bricks, stuff just pops up, animations.
New England bricks.
I think in what you were just talking about, and to your point, everything that we talk about as far as why we like certain materials or, changing roof lines or things like that should all kind of tie back to our vision, which is something along the lines of preserving the character of our town,
Yeah.
right? So, why do we like bricks? Because bricks were used in colonial times. A lot of our older buildings, especially coming from the Heritage and Historic Commissions, we're trying to preserve the character of our town, which is kind of a old orchard town. That's
It
what we
makes
are.
our town look stronger.
Right.
It
And
makes
we're-
our town look stronger. It makes it look like you're driving down the road and, a wind gust comes and, yep, that building over there is gonna get blown over. But this building over here in Londonderry, that's standing. So,
Yeah.
that's really kind of, when I'm looking at like these types of marketing materials and such, more pictures, the why, and I love the idea of, bringing developers, having them in the room, giving them the Disney World experience of this is Londonderry and having all these pictures that we love, kind of really there to influence them. So I think this has been a really great conversation.
Yeah.
I-
I think one key word you hit on there was marketing.
Yeah.
That is what this book needs to do, is it needs to market Londonderry. The book, however this process goes, whatever, but marketing Londonderry. And to your thing on brick, I just think it's very institutional. I like institutional.
Well, clapboard is king in Londonderry, I think. It's a traditional material that goes well with brick, as we've seen, but we can't forget that.
The next section of the lookbook had to do with signage. These are actually the 3 pictures I took. I ran around today, and there's one more on the next page. You know, how do we make, and I know signage is kind of like a whole nother conversation, because I know I feel like I've heard it the whole time I've been on the planning board, is we need to address our signage ordinance. But I'm looking at the structure of the sign itself, you know, though I don't like that cultured-looking stone on the convenient MD. What I do like is that cultured-looking stone is also on the sign. You know what I mean? It brings them together. The Hannaford sign, if you look at the bottom of it, it's got that row of brick on the bottom. If you go to the Hannaford building, the first 3 feet of the building are brick, followed by that same tan siding. You know, I like that they match the building. You know, the third picture, the Enterprise Bank here, to me is kind of bland. Something that, you know, if they took a little bit more from the building, which in this case it's more of a brick building, if they did something similar to like the Hannafords, I think it would just look a lot better. On the next page, one picture for whatever reason didn't come through.
That's a good one.
It was actually one that I really didn't like. It's one giant, like, I don't even know, 10 by 15 black stone sign at a set of apartment buildings in town. And to me, it's just disgusting. Whereas the residents of McGregor Cut, again, you know, the stone that they used around that, if you go in there, that same stone is brought throughout the property, you know, so it's accenting the property to a point. And then I kind of, just was questions going through my head on the last slide here. How do we make it that every applicant or every developer sees the lookbook? Making sure we all understand guidelines versus standards, where this is a guideline because we don't have standards. You know, I don't know what our current design standards are off the top of my head, but I think they're very small. You could probably answer a bit more.
We
to
do
that.
have standards in the site plan regulations
Yeah,
and guidelines in the site plan regulations. but
correct.
This is a guidance document.
Correct, and that, you know, this is well beyond and past the document we're working on, but do we look at different design standards, creating more of a design standard inside of our regulations? And should we change the layout or format of the lookbook? Obviously, clearly I'm doing that, but for whatever reason, I wrote it down. So just kind of everybody's input. How do we do this? How do we change the lookbook? How do we, you know, is it to Jeff's point, should we all sit here and kind of delegate what sections we want to work on that are existing? How's the best way to go about doing this?
I just want to go to your sign thing. When you book, just put pictures that fit the actual ordinance that didn't get waivers or,
Yeah, I see.
do you know what I mean? That are good examples
I
of
bet you
a
there's
sign
not
that
many of
didn't
those.
need any fixing on them.
Yeah.
To kind of,
The 102 is there by variance.
no, that was my only point.
The one thing I think we have to be careful of, and I think everyone thinks about it, I don't want 102 turning into South Willow Street.
Yeah,
And that's what'll happen.
Oh, it's getting there.
Exactly. So, is that what you want? I don't think so.
That's what we said, you know, I think, you know, like 40 years ago. We don't want
Yep.
to look like, you know, 28 in Salem or South Willow.
And I think that's a lot of why, you know, Jeff and I have talked about this a few times, and, you know, someday, whether it's soon or further away, Route 28 is gonna start to get developed. It's gonna start to get built out. We really don't want it to look like 102, you know what I mean? So let's give them as many tools and documents as we can so they can understand that we don't want it to look like
Yeah,
102.
we've tried to keep either end of Mammoth Road where the commercial development stops
Yeah,
and residential. The only problem, we've got a sewer line, and sewer begets multifamily and everything else.
yeah.
It works against us. I mean, it helps the schools. It really has helped the schools, helped, you know, the facility here, but it opens up things. And there's water there too, so.
This was a picture some lady took the other night and put on the London Area NH page on Facebook, by the way. It's an awesome picture.
I love it.
Have you
I
been
was-
there?
I was wondering if the
Yeah.
building was
I
on
was
fire.
just there this weekend, oddly enough.
Yeah, it's a good friend of mine.
Yeah.
Almost looks like it's on fire.
That's,
Sugar Shack.
getting the hot stuff in the maple syrup.
Yeah, he made pancakes while we were there and was
Yeah.
like, have some pancakes, and
Yep.
gave us hot maple syrup. It was
Sounds
incredible.
about right.
Maple syrup, maple sugaring weekend is the last weekend of this month.
Yep.
Is Eric gonna,
Oh, I'm sure he is. He's
Saturday and Sunday?
yeah, he's very excited for it.
Yeah.
I was gonna, yeah, he mentioned it to us. He was like, come back that weekend.
Yeah.
It'll be amazing.
So, obviously, we need a plan of attack here. What are we gonna do?
So I think,
Bring in
I
the
think your
pictures.
and Jeff's idea of dividing it up into, like commercial, like the industrial, office stuff is a good idea, because,
I like the idea of everybody bringing in the pictures, because I think each of us have an idea what some buildings really look like. They really look nice to them. I don't think we should limit it right this second, because we'll see what everybody's vision is.
maybe bring in at least 5 pictures, or
Yeah.
maybe 5 pictures of in town, 5 pictures of what you like outside of town.
And then we can split it up, then we'll see other people's views of what they're looking at and thinking is good.
I just
And
think
then we
that
could
if we're gonna
do
bring
that.
pictures
splitting.
in, we take them in the springtime when snow's gone and.
I think what,
It's
Is-
springtime.
I mean,
Right,
pictures
the
are
next
pictures,
meeting
those are easy to gather. I think what's important, and I certainly don't have the talent for it, is the content, is the wording,
Yeah.
and how it's worded. That is going to be key. I'm certainly not qualified for that, but, I think that's very important, and I don't know whether or not we should discuss who should start to look at that when it's time.
Yeah.
Because that's going to be important. It's going to be short, sweet, but it's got to be right.
What, my next comment was gonna be based exactly on that. We've talked, no, just expounding on your point. We've talked a lot about the way we want things to look, but what we haven't discussed nearly enough, I think, during this meeting so far is how we're gonna go about
Correct.
making this work.
Correct. That's what I'm looking for.
Are we gonna continue having joint meetings once a month, once every other month? Because we're talking now about all of us bringing pictures in, right? Bringing them in where? To a joint meeting every month? Or are we gonna just address it kind of piecemeal in the Heritage and Planning Board? How do we move forward?
I think the next round, we should still have a joint meeting, and I think we should have,
I saw this in my head being like 3 meetings. Tonight, introductory,
I-
get all our stuff together, the next meeting, present what we all want to see, present our wording, and then at the final meeting is, a couple of us taking on ourselves to put it all together,
Make a
present it
presentation.
and say, here it is.
Get an agreement from the group or,
and I think the final
changes.
result probably should reside with the Heritage Commission, I think it's gonna be a joint effort anyway, but really, it's a book that starts with staff, but it's really with the Heritage Commission working on the design, the architectural design, the aesthetics and everything.
how about communication outside of these meetings?
Yeah, I don't
I
know
have
how
a
that
feeling
works.
there's gonna be a lot of communication that's needed between the members of both boards, between these meetings, in order to facilitate what we're trying to make happen. But obviously, we have to be careful.
I think we should probably go through staff to communicate with members then, because if there's a majority of, either, the commission and the board, then you get a meeting, email meeting. So that's
Right.
the way, the RSA 91A.
Could we email back and forth and just make all our emails in like one giant meeting minutes book? Is that even allowed?
No, 'cause
Probably
it's-
not, yeah.
Constitutes a meeting that you have to notice.
Right.
May I make a suggestion? Let's have a schedule. We need photos. That's the first thing we need to do. So you know something? Let's set a date for our next meeting and say, guys, photo time. Bring the photos in. That next meeting, we'll look at the photos, all of us, and determine which ones we want to use. I mean,
I think
that's,
we should do photos and content, so we can kind of.
Well, you need to add your list. You said you were going to add separate sections.
Yeah,
That has to get done first, these are separate sections.
Identify another section.
So everybody has to, the business things, the roofing, the material sections that you wanted, those have to be listed. And then people can look at those sections to get photos to match those sections. And this photos, if we all sent them to one set person, whether it's Art or to you, right? Or even to Kelly, maybe. It goes to one
Yeah.
designated person, then they can put it together and disseminate it, because then it's not a meeting, it's informational things. And then so people, they'd all be numbered, and people won't know who took what pictures, which would be good, because then it won't be, oh, I don't like that person. Or, this way it's just random. You see the pictures and they're all numbered, and then everybody would pick their top 10, just say, in each category, and then that's how it would be anonymous, and it would be, I think it would be a better step. Why are you looking at me like I'm crazy?
Well,
Good
also,
idea, Deb, but makes staff busier, but it
Well,
keeps both, groups out of trouble with.
I can certainly help with distributing information.
there you go.
Collecting it and distributing it, so we're not getting into meetings and notices and that area.
I think we all agree, definitely photos. I think what the photos are gonna tell us is, I like the roof on that photo, Jake might like the facade on that photo type thing, and then the content can come from those photos. We like this roof because
Correct.
it's Londonderry. We like this facade because it's Londonderry, whatever. But I think the visual is going to then get to the content, and it's going to get to that really, that small content. So I don't think we necessarily need to look at like writing content out now. And I think the pictures and the visualization is going to get
Bring
us
the
that
content
content.
forward. Yeah.
And I think really our next step probably is that best of going out and making those pictures, taking those pictures.
Yeah,
And
so I still think maybe we should separate the pictures out a little bit, so we don't all end up coming back with, we took 60 pictures and it's of the 5 same things. Like Ann, I know you're super into windows. Maybe your focus should be windows or something. You know what I mean? Where you're looking at the windows of a building and. Deb's
Not
looking-
really.
Deb's
I
gonna
like
be-
the,
Buildings with windows that you like.
well,
Yeah,
no,
that's what I'm saying.
buildings that I think are timeless too, also. I mean, there's images that I like now, but will they be still beautiful 10 years from now, when you look back?
Yeah.
Something that's timeless. I'm looking for images that will stand the test of time too, not just because they're made out of brick or clapboard or whatever.
So if you're worried about too many pictures, maybe you take each title or topic and break it down to 3 and 3. 3 in town, 3 outside, instead of the 5. And they just get numbered, and you just pick from there.
I'll go with whatever the board.
And then you have your top, your top 6 are
Yeah.
in each, and that's a nice even number to lay out on the book that would look good. That's up to you guys.
What's a good, I just picked 5 because at least there's plenty there, but it doesn't have to be 5.
If someone makes 10 pictures, we don't have to use all 10. We can pick the best of the 10 to go in.
Yeah, it's getting down to that. You have
Yeah,
to,
well, it's,
Yeah, and someone may have a better angle of a building than you have, but,
that's right.
light,
yeah,
the light was better, or it was,
yeah.
you just never know.
The sun is just perfect.
someone has an iPhone 13.
Best to
and
take
posts an
pictures in
iPhone
cloudy days.
So do you have something, Sue?
Yes, it is.
I know. Cloudy days, you get no shadows.
Sue?
So I gotta bring it up again, because this has bugged me a long time with, is there any kind of rule or something we can come up with that if they don't go out of their original blueprint, like the car dealership, which makes me ill, that somehow either it still comes back to heritage or something, because look how that ended up, and the Sunoco gas station is with the big logo, and you know what I mean? Because if we don't, it's going to escalate. It's going to keep going, and it's going to wreck everything that we, the heritage set up. It's just
I think that's something that we'll have to have Kelly look at with the town manager on
Yeah.
state law on that, right?
Yeah.
Whether we have the authority to do that or not, I don't think it's
Well,
there.
change it then, because really, think of it, how each entity is gonna, do that, and then it's like, well, why have a heritage if they're just gonna keep, they're gonna
Well,
do that
for
and
example,
change.
if someone has brick, now all of a sudden they want to move to wood for a facade.
Nobody's moving from brick to
Well, I'm
wood.
just saying, for example, if we wanted to have brick facade, and all of a sudden they say, oh, no, we want to
I
change
think
it
that's
back.
something that's more outside of what we're doing here, you know? That's more Kelly and
Yeah.
Mike and John maybe looking to
It's
see.
legal
All right,
stuff.
Yeah.
But Kelly would
But-
have to look into all that.
So can we set a date for another session, as Jim suggested, so we know we're coming back?
Let's
be
see,
second
our-
meeting
our
next month,
April
right?
meeting is fairly busy.
Well, so the next, what we would call our work session is April 12th.
Yeah.
But Woodmont is intending to have their fiscal update.
It's their, Woodmont's
al-
annual
What's that?
update, tax positive or tax negative thing.
That would probably
So
turn
May.
into a really long meeting.
May?
Maybe in May.
Could
'cause-
also
well, the next
tag
Heritage-
this onto the Heritage Committee meeting if we needed to. I mean, whatever works.
Well, I think by the rules of the whatever, it has to be through the planning board, right?
You're intending on having a joint meeting.
Yeah. If it was a joint meeting, it would have to be through
It's
the
called by
planning
the
board.
planning board. That's what I thought I read.
Yeah, 'cause that's the- 'cause the
It
next-
actually says the same thing in the Heritage Board rules. It
did?
does.
It's just that the planning board has to chair the meeting. But the next, the May planning board work session is May 10th.
That would give, I think, more than sufficient time for people to get their pictures together and
Yeah.
at least some of it of each individual has, take a lot of pictures, pick the 3 and 3. I think that's a,
All digitally, correct?
pardon?
All digitally
Yes, digitally.
to Kelly.
Yeah, I take mine on here, so at least I can get it to, Kelly.
So tonight, should you add your things that you want to add to it that definitely have to get added?
Probably, yeah. Which
I
would
mean,
be residential,
Uh,
multifamily, right?
Business complexes, mixed use,
Yeah, correct.
and
Correct.
what Ted said,
That's a residential, right?
apartments.
Yeah,
Apartments.
the only residential is multifamily that we have.
Yeah, not single
Not-
units, but
not-
multifamily
not
residential.
Single-family housing,
Yeah,
that's,
the Wallace Farms and the McGregor cut type.
Multifamily.
You mentioned
that's it.
service as well, like for gas stations.
Yeah.
Yep, services.
That to me can just go under like retail, you know? I don't think there should be a delineation between, what is it, big box and something else? Big box and strip retail, I think it should just be retail.
Big box and what, Jake? I couldn't hear
Strip
you.
retail, it's kind of two different sections in the book now. I think it
should
should
be.
just be retail to me.
Well,
retail.
there was a big, and you remember this, Art, right? The big thing about not having box stores, you must remember. Mike Brown, we put in overlay districts, maybe Ted remembers, I don't know.
we get the
But
PODs
we,
on-
we really, there's a big difference because we were trying to keep them from not being as ginormous as like a big,
Yeah, 50,000 square feet was the limit. I
40.
think, for one of them.
yeah.
40,000.
So, I mean, there is a difference between that and, because that's just one building as opposed to a strip mall that's
See what you're saying?
multiple
Yeah,
things.
yeah.
I mean, I get where
But
you're
it's all
going to try to
retail.
condense
You know what I
it.
mean? We're like big box retail, strip mall retail. and
Maybe
then
it's a
single unit
subtitle.
retail. Yeah, I don't know. I just consider it all retail to me.
And we should probably also look at different types of industrial buildings.
Yeah, that's it.
Connotation.
Ann brought up a good point. Instead of strip mall, say multi-retail.
Yeah,
Makes it
because
sound
strip-
nicer.
Strip malls is basically a negative term now, so it's just multi-retail,
Multi-retail.
like that.
But business complex and going on upon what we're trying to do with mixed use sort of stuff where there's, some light business with apartments above it. How do you want those to look? I mean, there's some great examples of some different things in our master plan, like the one they're building in Derry, the farm development, where that looks like a farm, a working farm.
Yeah.
And it has apartments and food to table restaurants and it,
That's over in Derry?
they're just starting it, yeah.
Where?
I can't remember, I'm sorry. I can get that information for you. But it's in our master plan. It's an example of a drawing. I mean, there's some in there that are really nice. But,
I was going to also say that we should also look at different types of industrial buildings that are out there because, you know, someone's idea of industrial building is very different from the modern day sleek-looking industrial buildings that are out there for pharmaceutical buildings to manufacturing to even some warehousing. But, you know, a lot of the pharmaceutical buildings that fall probably under industrial are very sleek-looking these days, and
I think you just found your section to focus on, Ted.
maybe.
I totally agree, though.
I
Totally
like
agree.
the brick smokestacks.
Yeah. So, all right, well, that was pretty much my first original take, and I felt like we needed something to all look at here and be on the same page. So,
Well, I think we're
let's
on the
get some
same page.
pictures, let's come to the May whatever meeting and knock this thing out of the park, so that way at the next meeting, we've got a new lookbook, and we can all say it looks great, and we're done.
Great job, Jake. Thank you.
Good job.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Getting there. Getting there.
So when we get our new lookbooks, we'll have you autograph it, Jake.
Yeah, right.
Have the electronic autograph. Okay, anything else? So, I think we're gonna plan, we'll take pictures, and we'll meet on the 10th of May.
Fantastic.
And I think with Sue's concerns, our staff will look into what we can do. You have to remember, New Hampshire is a Dillon state, non-home rule. We can only do what the state legislature delegates to us. It has to be specific also.
I think that's it.
Uh,
Motion to adjourn?
Are you all set, Chris?
Anybody?
I'm good.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, I have a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second by Jake, you made the motion, Al seconded. All those in favor of adjournment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everyone.
Excellent job.